Hello, I'm Julia. Welcome to the MindMatters Panel. Comedian Craig Ferguson said, I think when you become a parent, you go from being a star in the movie of your own life to the supporting player in the movie of someone else's. So, how can we engage and share information with parents in a way that doesn't treat them like bit players in their kids' lives? Helping me find out is clinical psychologist and family therapist Andrew Fuller, Centre for Multicultural Youth Education Support Officer Placid Jayasuriya. Hello.
Hello.
School psychologist Sarah Innes, teacher Narissa Rodriguez, and parent Monique Parlavleet. Hello.
Hello.
But before we get started, let's see how Eagleton has approached this problem.
Engaging parents and families. It's really important, but it also can be really tough. They're busy. They're juggling commitments. We used to have parent information nights, but attendance was not good. And we thought, why does it always have to be blah, blah, blah? How can we engage parents in a really different way? And we came up with the Eagleton High Parent Sleepover. It's really great. Everyone gets to party, socialise, and talk about mental health strategies. It's all about the playlist. We start with Bobby McFerrin's Don't Worry, Be Happy, and we end with Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. We go on the complete journey. Mr. Pollock, what do you like about the parent sleepover?
No kids.
It's our most popular event. Ooh, fairy bread.
Oh yes, it's delicious, but it does seem a little involved. We'll put that fairy bread down. What do we actually mean by engaging parents?
I think we're trying to get them over the threshold of the school gate, I think, and not to be so distant from school at times. I think we want them to be involved in their lives, their children's lives at school, and to feel engaged in what's happening at school with their children, but also at those key times that we need to communicate with them and not be avoiding us or think that we're knocking on their door or phoning them because their children's done something wrong every time you have a phone call from school. I think that's what we really mean.
I'm surprised by all this. I'm surprised because why don't parents want to be involved in school? I mean, wouldn't you want to cross the threshold? Aren't you? Not all the time and be there 24 hours a day, sure, but isn't it something that you actually need to do and want to do? She said having no children of her own and had no idea. Question mark?
Look, I think when people get to having their children go to secondary school, there's something interesting that happens, that the involvement is no longer the same as it was in primary school. Primary school's very much a warm, opening, involved, engaging place.
Well, stop right there. That's crazy. Why isn't high school a warm, engaging, social?
Well, that's a very good point. We are. I think maybe some schools don't work on that in a way that maybe parents feel that. So I think that sometimes we don't advertise very clearly to our parents where to go, who to talk to, when you need support, or who might call you and for what reasons, and how the systems are in place at the school to support our students.
It can be a balancing act because, of course, at this age, the students are going to their parents.
Leave me alone.
Yes. So, gradually from the end of grade 6, you really notice that they're going, you're not actually coming to the school, are you?
So kids actually might not want their parents to cross the threshold of high school.
So it's finding that balance, really, of how you can do it without the kid going, oh, mum.
That's it.
Oh, mum.
It's over. Why aren't parents interested in schools? What are the barriers, Andrew?
Well, parents and grandparents are both some of the most important teachers any child will ever have. And so they're very interested in their child's learning, but they don't feel welcomed into the school, or they feel that they're out-experted by the teachers. And I think that's a real problem for any school to get around, because if you can enlist that group of parents, even those that have had fairly negative experiences of school themselves, are still interested in the best for their kids. And partly it's because school's a daunting place where, as Sarah said, you don't quite know, particularly in the secondary and high schools, who to contact, where to go. So we really need to have parent liaison people. We really need to really identify this is the key person. If you have an issue or you just want to connect with somebody, this is the person that you should speak to. But also, we live in the age of the individual. So it's no longer sufficient to put out a sort of bulletin board that says, would any parent be prepared to come along to information night on Thursday week? It's more the personal invitation saying, Julia, would you mind coming?
Often some of the newly arrived families could be quite foreign for them to have an open channel into a school. They may come from a background where, you know, schools and teachers is like in a pedestal, you know. They are used to passing the responsibility of learning sometimes to schools, and they don't feel or they don't realise they have a role, perhaps. Well,
again, we come back to the issue that we've discussed all the way through with resilience, that it's about improving relationships. So whether it's a new arrival family saying, Placid, could you come up and we would like to talk about, you know, having a positive contribution to the school, say as a new arrival family, that's an amazing bridge really into the new culture that person's joined. So it's a great opportunity, and also if they're quite referential, as many new arriving families are, of teachers, it actually builds something that makes it very powerful. We know the peak times in schools for connectedness, obviously with little kids, having grandparents involved in reading programs is just a boom for those kids' literacy levels, but also around grade 5 and year 10 are the critical times. We know that basically reconnecting with those parents that have drifted off along the wayside really pays off big time, because parent involvement correlates very strongly with school success, and it correlates really strongly with the positive behaviour of the senior students in primary and in secondary or high schools, and that's of course a major gain for the teachers.
What kinds of information do you think parents would like schools to provide? What would have been helpful for you, Mon?
It's not just about their mental health, it's the whole picture of how they're travelling academically, how they're travelling socially. Ash went to a different high school initially and they had no idea. It was the same thing every year. This is Ash, these are her needs, you know, need to address these things. And every year it was like we were going there for the first time. For some newly arrived families, the concept of mental health is foreign. And often there's no translation for mental health.
There's really no translation for the word or the concept.
That's right. So, so schools have struggled with trying to talk about, you know, some of the issues some of the young people might be having with the parents, even using interpreters, trying to get that concept out. What does it mean?
What's the number one thing parents you think would like to get from teachers?
Oh, to hear good news about their kid.
Yeah,
really. Some positive feedback.
Yeah.
About something that they like about their child or something they like about what they're doing at school.
Yeah.
Positive news travels fast.
It's surprising if I would call home and say, give some positive feedback to a parent, it's almost like the child changes immediately.
Yes.
They want to please you. They want to see you happy, and they're happy that you've called their parents. And it's phenomenal, the difference it can make, that one phone call.
Often parents will ring me with questions specifically relating to their child. It's very rarely they ring me and say, give me some information about depression. So it's often they're asking questions about how their child might be travelling or what they could be doing, some very practical skills they could be doing to supporting their child. When it's regarding mental health, it's often about just some basic education around what the difficulties might be coming out, the behavioural observations that school has been making, and maybe some things that perhaps I've worked with that child in supporting them. So it could be things around bedtime or diet or exercise, and ways that parents can support their child to make sure that they're accountable for those things.
We've established that you often don't get a high-level engagement of parents in high schools. They just won't cross that threshold. So what can schools actually do? How can schools be proactive?
We've recently started an orientation program. This is the second year we've run it. And last year it was, we have a day where the kids actually prepare a meal for their parents and invite them up in the afternoon.
How fabulous.
And the kids cooking food really engages people. It's a very social thing.
Is that run by a teacher, or you just let them loose in the home science room, which I think could be dangerous, frankly?
Definitely. So there's two teachers. We run it together, myself and another teacher, and it's completely different meeting parents in a relaxed environment. Kids really thrive on presenting something for their parents.
And that's a tactic that we're going to try and start taking, because our parents have given us feedback that they're hungry for information. How do we solve these issues around technology, and how do we support our children to have healthy internet access, so for instance. So we're trying to find ways that we can introduce, not the standard, here's a speaker at the front of the room giving you a very direct information session, which can be quite dry and boring, and I personally don't want to attend those anymore. I want to be involved in things, I want to have discussions, I want to meet other parents, I want it to be a relaxed, casual space. So we can also recruit students as part of that. They're more experts in technology than often our generation is now even, and so we're looking to find a forum for them to be part of that, where their parents can be involved in this workshop. And I think parents are more likely to turn up if their kids are doing things.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And Placid, what could
I actually agree with that as a great strategy. Like some of the schools that we are supporting have, with our support, have set up family learning spaces as a space in the school for the parents to hang out.
Great.
They also provide an opportunity for some of their children to receive learning support. We run a lot of homework clubs and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for parents to mingle, and for teachers, for staff to provide other, from career, it's a huge topic about career pathways, educational pathways. It's a lot of the newly arrived getting their heads around that, how it all works. I see there's so many opportunities for schools to engage with the parents outside the school. They may have their churches or their place of worship or their festivals, their markets they may particularly go to. These are all opportunities for schools to grab, And often I've had experience where parents see this school actively trying to engage them into the school community, and they say, hey,
And they respond.
And they're moving some of their students into that school.
Yeah, right. Okay. How do you talk to parents about resilience, or about drugs, or about sex, or what's going on? Is it just, it's a difficult conversation, but it's one that you go into?
Oh, yeah, I think it's fine to raise those sorts of issues, and I think sometimes it's just good to be revealing yourself about some of the problems that you have on a day-to-day basis with some of the kids that you work with, that we don't have all the answers either, but these are the things that we often struggle with. Do you find raising your kids that there are some issues that you struggle with? Obviously, there are delightful moments as well. We can talk about those, and we can talk about the heartwarming stuff as well, so it's not all negative.
No.
But at the same time, realising that we have smooth patches and we also have bumpy rides every so often.
I guess coming from the perspective of newly arrived families, I guess having you have your standard newsletter, having different languages, having audio newsletters, because some newly arrived may not be literate in their own language, so having the audio and blogs and forums where parents can seek support from other parents and communicate with their children.
I think there is the standard newsletter, which I think can get ignored and lost in the busyness of life. I think it's just, though, really taking the time at any point that parent is in contact with you and
grabbing them.
Yeah, and grabbing them and just forcing them to listen to
your message. Please don't leave.
Please don't leave. I think it's about how you set up that space and make it comfortable. So there's a point of enrolment. You've got that opportunity to have those things. Any point within the school calendar where you might have parents visiting, whether it's, I guess, a musical that the school's putting on, or a sports carnival that perhaps parents are coming along to watch. There are opportunities to have that contact.
I agree with what you're saying, that it's about every time you see them, but also it's about any time you communicate. If you can show who that young person is, that makes all the difference for me in terms of being able to pick up the phone and call the school. Because, at her previous school, I wouldn't have picked up the phone because I'm like, why bother? They actually have no idea who she is.
How do we integrate this into our mental health strategy?
I think it's really important just to realise that we all share a lot in common, that parents are very resourceful people. They're busy, but they all generally have at their heart the best interests of their kids. Where the adults are actually talking to one another, not in a knowledgeable way, about the kids, and they actually know who they're talking about, then there's a real sense that basically there's an adult world wrapping itself around that child and supporting him or her, and that becomes a real basis of a mental health strategy, if you like. So it's when the adults in the world model these good behaviours to kids that kids go, oh, that's the way you behave here. You know, you're friendly, you're open, you're welcoming. There's not a sense of who's to blame. It's more a sense of how do we fix this issue. Often,
you know, a young person may not be in one home. Some backgrounds, they might be over their auntie's house for a week, they might be over in another auntie's house for another week. So it's just a shared caring role some of the communities have.
And how can you be sensitive to the needs of all these diverse communities? Because, you know, the teachers have got to go in there and deal with all different kinds of things.
I think the key is the communication, giving the opportunity to parents to talk about their needs, you know, what's going on.
What about community leaders? Can they disseminate information as well?
Often a good way is to try to find that couple of key people in that community who can work with you, to support you. And, you know, often they do meet as groups for church or temples or wherever.
Look, this is a lot to take in. So what are the key things to remember, Andrew? And I always turn to you for the final word.
Thanks, Julia. I mean, kids only spend 15% of their time as kids in school. Most of their education is going to occur outside of school. So the idea that parents and grandparents, and I keep mentioning grandparents because they're a very important ingredient in this mix, important co-educators is critical. As Narissa was saying, that early sort of positive contact that you can have individually with a parent just about something positive that young Jenny or Johnny or whatever their name is has done, it pays off big time. Using technology is also incredibly powerful. Having texting groups where you can text all of the parents in a class group and say, the class have been dealing with such and such this week. Over the weekend, if you'd like to discuss a particular issue, this might be the one, is a really powerful thing to do. Almost every parent has a mobile phone. Or we can start to think about sending, in some schools, postcards home, saying, you know, that your daughter has done something really well and such, you know, that kind of stuff. There's a whole series of ways of communicating that we didn't have 10 years ago that we need to really utilise much more powerfully. So the balance of contact between a school and the parents is overwhelmingly positive rather than overwhelmingly problem-based. Particularly for those parents who maybe had shoddy experiences in school themselves, all they're expecting from the school is to be contacted when there's trouble. And of course, nobody likes to hear that, do they? And so people kind of avoid that. It's understandable.
So if there's silence, it's fine.
If
there's nothing, everything must be okay.
Their belief.
Yeah.
And to realise that there are peak moments in the school journey when you really want to capitalise on parent connection. Obviously, with new arrival families, you want to grab them, involve them and get to know them, because once you get to know them, that's a powerful way. It could be great to have one morning a week where, you know, don't just drop your kid off at school, come in, have a coffee with some of the staff, have a shared breakfast or something like that. You know, just small strategies that don't have to occur all the time, but every so often.
That's a very long wrap-up. Good on you, Noel. Joe, he was amazing. He was amazing. Sometimes it's good to think about parents from a teenager's perspective, and so we'll end with a quote by Jared Kintz. He wrote, "I'm an only child, so logically I gave birth to my parents because if it weren't for me, they wouldn't be parents at all. They'd simply be a married couple."